Hi, welcome to my channel Mostly Knitting. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new here, I'm Tash, and this is a weekly podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing during the week, and I also put out regular tutorials. So it's Wednesday the 22nd of January and I'm recording in Sydney, Australia. I'll start with my friend from the vault, which is a segment where I talk about a project that I made earlier, and I'm wearing it at the moment. This is the Broken Rib Tank by Kristen Tendyke. Now that is a free pattern on Kristen's website, or you can purchase a PDF version of it on Ravelry for $8 US. Now Kristen actually has quite a few free patterns on her website, so it's worth going and taking a look. This pattern is a bottom-up construction and it has a gauge of 20 stitches and 28 rows, so a yarn like Sanders Gun Lena might be suitable for this kind of pattern. I actually knit it using a sport weight yarn, and so my gauge is quite a bit tighter. I knit the 32-inch bust size, and because my gauge was 22.5 stitches over 4 inches and the pattern gauge is 20 stitches, my finished bust circumference is 28.5 inches, which is 3.5 inches of negative ease. Back when I made this pattern, I was knitting all of my projects really long from the underarm to hem. So I knit this one 15.5 inches there. And at the moment I'm knitting those sorts of tops around 11 inches. So this is definitely significantly longer than most of my current projects. But because it is a bottom-up construction, even if I wanted to make it a little bit smaller, it would involve quite a bit of surgery to do that. So I'm just wearing it with pants in my wardrobe that are lower waisted. It weighs 180 grams, so it used under 4 balls of the Peyton's Grace. I could see myself making this again, but just making it shorter from the underarm to the hem. And also, I'm not hugely happy with the Peyton's Grace. So I feel like it's a little bit gappy and holey. So if I take a look, you can see this sort of, the tension, it sort of highlights every little inconsistency, and blocking hasn't completely helped that out. I think those two spots there are actually short rows. So there are short rows in the pattern, and this might have been like at my earlier stages of doing short rows, and the pattern specifies to use wrap and turn short rows, which is what I did. But I often find, see, there's quite a lot of short rows here and they're all okay, but with wrap and turn, just these last two just don't turn out as evenly as some of the others. But even apart from that, these little spots here, yeah, I just don't like, I feel like it's just a little bit uneven. And my knitting tension is usually pretty good, but I guess this yarn is not particularly forgiving. I think it's 100% mercerized cotton. So I wouldn't mind making it again, maybe in Sanders Gun Lena actually, and which I would get a gauge of around 20 stitches, so the 32-inch bust should finish around 32, which would be no ease for me. And and I'd knit it just a little bit shorter. You can see I've done a lot of waist shaping in here. All of my tops I was doing some pretty aggressive waist shaping. Like I think there's probably like maybe 6 I have to stand right back so you can actually see it. Maybe about 6 decreases. I'm wearing it with some I'll stand back a little bit, low-waisted white pants here. So that's sort of, yeah, like if it was wearing with, like here's my navel right here. So if I was wearing something high-waisted, it would be a really large amount covering here, which I think wouldn't look great. Anyway, so I do actually still have some clothing in my wardrobe that this works with, but I think I could do a better job of it now. I don't know that my knitting has necessarily improved that much, but certainly maybe with a different yarn that I get like a slightly better, sort of tension with might be. I've got more of this yarn in stash, so it'd be interesting for me to knit something else with it and see if I still get the same kind of result. Anyway, this it's a really lovely pattern, really well written, and it's free. I really like this neckline. One thing I did do was, and this is not in the pattern, but it has, like this was just a little bit open, so I did a single crochet just around the armhole, and yeah, I just think it's a really nice, elegant top, but I wouldn't mind making another one in a different yarn. Moving on to my works in progress, the first project I'll show you is the Florence bag by Petite Knit, and I knit this out of Sanders Gun Tin Lena in the colorway 3021 with 3 strands held together. So then this is the one where the knitting is actually finished. You cast on here and do some stockinette, then some lace pattern, and then some decreases. So I've finished all of that part. What I have to do now is to sew in the zipper sew in the lining and also attach the straps. Now I'll just do this acquisition section in here because I did actually receive my package from Petite Knit, and I bought the zip. So it's a metal zip with quite a nice decorative pull and these leather straps. I think that's like a 1/2 inch width, and I'm guessing, I think it was something like a 49-inch length, but I'll put that down below. It does feel like a nice leather. It's a pretty, it's not too thick. Yeah, I just wanted to at least try one version of the Petite Knit strap and zipper, and then if I make any future versions of the bag, I'll source that locally because it is kind of expensive. And I'm sure I know our local big box store Spotlight carries metal zips. So the yarn, like the color of the zip isn't it's a little bit too sandy this has got a lot of sort of pinky sort of tones in it. So I don't think that's perfect, but given the amount of the tape that you'll actually see, I'm just going to go with it. Like I think by the time you've actually sewn that in, I do have to be a little bit careful. I've read not to sew this too close to the zipper, to the actual teeth themselves, otherwise it can get caught. But I still don't think you'll actually see a lot of that zipper tape. So I'm going to go with this. I will definitely block it. So there are videos for all of the finishing work on the Petite Knit website, but I also know that that Fruity Knitting, there's one of their episodes where Andrea actually has a tutorial because she's made it and did a tutorial on the lining and sewing it in and everything. So I'll look at all of the resources before I get started on it, and I'll also block it. So when I was looking at the Petite Knit website, it didn't look like they had blocked it at all, because when they were sewing, this was definitely curling, but I really think it would be a lot easier for me if I block it. And unless I'm doing a shawl with a lot of lace work, I don't usually pin out my knits when I block them, like I don't pin my sweaters or anything. But with this, I will definitely pin that down because I'd like that sitting sort of flat so that it's easier to sew in. So this weighs 87 grams. So I actually had 3 balls of it, so I didn't have to do any kind of yarn management because the yarn's held triple and I had 3 balls, so I just had 1 strand of each. It wasn't the easiest. I kind of wish I had actually wound them into center pull balls because I had sort of the 3 balls rolling around in my bag. But anyway, I didn't do it. It would have been easier if I'd done that. But other than that, I didn't have any yarn management issues. But on the Petite Knit website, they do have and Beck talked about, my friend Beck in our previous episode talked about this last week, there is a way that you can use 1 ball of yarn and managing the yarn with pulling out a strand sort of continually to be able to get a triple strand out of 1 ball. But I didn't need to do that, seeing I had 3 balls. So yeah, it weighs 87 grams. So in total, it weighs less than 2 balls. I would have enough yarn to make maybe the small version because this is the large version. So yeah, I'm going to block it. That will hopefully open up the lace. It's a very easy, memorable lace pattern. And that's how the decreases look. But obviously that's the bottom of the bag. So that's kind of what you'll see. But it does look nice kind of on the bottom, like that little spiral. Anyway, the blocking will open up the lace. I would definitely want it to line it anyway, seeing, I wouldn't want things falling through, and yeah, I just think it'll look better anyway. Obviously you'll see the lining through, but I don't think I'll be doing anything fancy with the lining. I think this is a really nice basic summer bag, and I'd like it to be sort of to stay fairly neutral. So I'll just do something that's sort of like just a calico or something along those lines. So yep, at least the knitting's done, but there's still a fair bit of work to go. Yep, but very happy with that. I'm not sure if I'll have it finished next week, but hopefully I will. I'd love to have it finished before summer's over. So the knitting portion of this took me 2 weeks, so that's been on the needles for 14 days. It was kind of hard on my hands, so I did have to knit in stages, and the decreases were particularly hard to sort of keep in. They're really well written decreases, and they keep in the pattern really nicely, as you can see here, but they do involve knit 3 together through the back loop. And this yarn is quite splitty, like not splitty, but I guess, well, lots and lots of little strands, I guess. And I guess it is kind of splitty. So you have 3 strands, and then obviously knit 3 together, that's 9 strands, plus each thing itself is made up of a number of plies. So I used Chaogu needles, which have quite a sharp point, but I did have to use quite a lot of tension in my hands to really get the you know, to do the knit 3 together through the back loop. So just be aware of that. Otherwise it's pretty easy knitting, but it's just a little bit difficult on your hands. So I only sort of did a little bit each day just to protect my hands. My next work in progress is Heimathafen by Isabell Kraemer, and I'm knitting it out of Pearl Soho linen quill in the colorways Kettle Black and Pale Oats. I'm knitting the 34-inch size, and I'm using a different yarn. I think it's Mayak Fino is the yarn that's recommended for the pattern, but I think the Pearl Soho linen quill is a really good substitute. At the moment, I'm actually getting gauge. So my swatch was a little bit, I think I was getting 26 stitches over 4 inches. The pattern gauge is 24. Once I've sort of blocked it, I'm getting closer to the 24 stitch gauge. And actually, as I measure it right now, it's measuring 34 inches. So right now I'm on gauge, although I haven't blocked it since this part here. So I will block it again because I'm getting to the point where I need to decide on length. Now, the way the pattern's written is it's a set number of rows between each of these white colorways so that it looks, or these white rows, so that it has this same, you know, consistency down. What that does mean though, is that you have to like be a bit careful in terms of where you're finishing. I don't want to finish right in the middle of a white section, although the white section's only 4 rows. So I'm at that point now. At the moment it measures 10.5 inches from the underarm. So I have to decide whether I want to do the, like, actually knit, I think I've got about another 9 rows to go, then the white section, and then a little bit more black, or whether I finish it before the white section. So I will block it. I'm at that point now where I'm kind of needing to make that decision, because 10.5 inches, I need it a little bit longer, but I need to decide if I commit to going past the white section, how big is that actually going to be? Is it, or how long is that going to be? Now I really want this to be not a massively oversized 4-ply sweater, but just a little bit of room. So, and I've figured out that 34 inches, which is 2 inches of positive ease for me, is a really nice, just a little bit of room that I can just throw it on really easily over whatever I'm wearing, and it feels comfortable. So yes, I'm very happy that it's ended up 34 inches. It might, you know, after blocking be a little bit bigger, but we'll see how we go. Either way, I'm feeling really comfortable with the sizing, and I really love the yarn. And I've got plenty of the, even the Pale Oats, because I have some extra from another work in progress, my Stella quilt cushion. I definitely have plenty of the Pale Oats. So if I decide to do the 6th section, I can. I have to block it to be sure. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a lovely, well-written pattern. The dip stitches, there's no actual, even though it looks like it might be feral, there's no 2-color rows. It's just this dip stitch design, and yeah, I think it's great. I think it won't take, oh, obviously I still have 2 sleeves to go, but yeah, I'm at the point where I'm decision making, so I can't really make any progress until I've blocked it. My next work in progress is the Monday sweater by Petite Knit, and I'm using Jagger Spun Heather in Blackberry and Rowan Kid Silk Haze in Black Currant. And it's coming out really beautifully in this really nice heathered kind of look. I think these two look really beautiful together. And last week I'd started it, but then I decided to rip it out and change it to a twisted rib instead of a regular rib, which I'm really happy about. I think that looks much nicer. I chose not to do the double knitting rows at the fold over, or sort of at the halfway point. I knit 17 rows, which is because I'm actually following the Monday Sweater Junior pattern rather than the Monday Sweater Adult pattern, and I'm knitting the largest size. So I cast on 90 stitches, and I'm actually really happy with that. Like it'll obviously sit down a little bit more, and I haven't blocked it at this point, but I like that height for this kind of warmth of sweater, because it's actually going to keep, you know, keep me warm, which is what I would want when it's a, you know, a sweater with mohair in it. So, you know, I'd be wearing it when it's cold. And yeah, I really like this height. Because I didn't buy the Monday sweater, I don't really know what the cast on numbers are for those other sizes, but this cast on was 90 stitches, which really does dictate where it's going to sit. Then in terms of the sizing that I'm going to make, even though the largest size of the junior is about 40 inches, I don't want mine to be that big. And I don't even really know if my gauge is exactly the same as the pattern gauge, which is 21 stitches and 28 rows. I'm using the recommended needles of 4mm needles, but I'll have a better idea of my gauge once I block it, when I've got a lot more on the needles. So, or a lot more fabric, I should say. So I did a crochet, even though the pattern doesn't say to, I did a crochet provisional cast on, and then did one knit row, and then started with the patterning, and then joined that after 17 rows of 1 by 1 twisted rib. So that's what I did there. Then I followed the pattern instructions for the short rows. There's, for my size, there's 12 short rows, so 6 pairs. So 12 rows, probably about 1.5 inches. That's how much higher the back is than the front, which is good. I think that otherwise I think it would end up sort of choking me. So I just followed the pattern instructions for that's, for my size. But in terms of how many raglan increases I'm going to do, because it's very basic, 8 rows or 8 stitches on an increased row, then an even row, etc., until you get to your particular numbers for your size. But I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. I'll just, once I'm starting to get to kind of the arm side that I'm interested in, or like feeling like it's the right size for me, then I will block it, measure my gauge, measure sort of how big it's I'm expecting, and then I'll modify based on if I need any more rows, or cast on more or less under the arms. I would like this to be around the 34 to 36 inch mark. So if my gauge is the same as the pattern, I'll need to do either a few less raglan increases, or cast on a few less stitches under the arms. I'm not up to that part of the pattern yet. I'll sort of take a look at it once I'm a little bit further along. But coming along really nicely, very happy with it. I did discuss it compared to the no frills sweater, and I sort of in my mind thought, is the Monday sweater just the no frills sweater but with a folded a folded neckline? Not quite. So the gauge on the two of them are the same. They're both 21 stitches and 28 rows. So I just went and grabbed my no frills sweater. Now, I did a twisted rib on this one as well, just obviously because I like that a little bit better. The no frills sweater has a much larger cast on for the same equivalent size, substantially larger. So that means, a neckline that's further down, which you can actually see in Petite Knit's photo. It is a wider neckline than the Monday sweater is a much higher neckline. And the no frills sweater, the back is higher again than the Monday sweater. So there's 20, for my size anyway. I knit the smallest size for the no frills sweater. I can't even remember what that was. And I think I definitely modified, I know I modified it and did less raglan increases to get that one to be less oversized. So, and I'll put down below what the finished garment measurements of this is, but I definitely cast on for the smallest size for this one. So certainly it has a larger cast on, obviously doesn't have a folded rib. This is knit on, the rib here is knit on a 3mm needle and then a 4mm for the body, whereas the Monday sweater, it's a 3.5 and then a 4, which I followed. Perhaps just having that a little bit dense, more dense, because it's going to be up a bit higher, whereas this is a little bit more relaxed and a bit sort of further down. And I had 12 short rows here, 6 pairs. In this one I had 20 short rows, so 10 pairs of short rows, and they occur more around the front, whereas these ones are a little bit more spread out. So there are quite a few differences. I wouldn't say one pattern is just the same, I want to be fair about that. They are not just, this Monday sweater is not just the no frills with a folded neckline. There are quite a few differences. This is a much wider neckline, a deeper kind of like this section here, really the neckline is much more dropped. So wider neckline, more short rows, which results in a front lower, substantially lower than the back. But similar but different. So yeah, they are. If you already have the no frill sweater and you're thinking you're making the Monday sweater, I'd buy the Monday sweater. I think it's worth it. In terms of which one you buy, I don't know. Like depending on your sizing, I've chosen to buy the junior size. The junior has 17 rows for the neckline. I don't know if there's more rows for the adult one. I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. I'm happy. I actually am really happy with that. Even if the adult one has more rows, I really like that. I like the height of it, and I like the neckline, and I like the color. I love the yarn. Thank you, Mindy. Mindy gifted me this yarn from Jagger Spun, which is a mill that's unfortunately closing in Maine. And I'm excited to be finally knitting this sweater. I think it's really, really lovely, and I'm going to really enjoy having it in my wardrobe in winter. My next work in progress is the Stella quilt cushion by Laura Penrose, and I've actually finished the back. So I had already finished the front, very happy with that, and I actually finished the back. I had a lot of car knitting time. I thought there wasn't that much to go, but there was still quite a bit to go. So really happy that that's done. I've got this opening here. So I did, you could choose to do the backing separate and sew it on, but I actually did do the method where you knit it while you, obviously that's not the exciting side. This is the exciting side. So I'm at the point now where I have to do the envelope closure, but I need to wait on this until I've finished Heimathafen. Heimathafen is using this colorway here, Pale Oats, and I had a 25 gram mini skein, but I have a feeling I might need to use some of this, especially if I choose to do that 6th row of and make Heimathafen a little bit longer. So I don't want to use it all up in this and then run out for that one. So this is kind of just on pause until I finish that one. For the, because I do want to do the envelope closure. I quite like the look of it. If I do run out of yarn, or I know I'm not going to have enough for the depth, I think somebody mentioned that it should be about 5 inches to make sure that it, you know, really properly covers it. So what I might do is stripe in, if I know I'm going to need a bit more yarn, I'll stripe in a little bit of these colors. So maybe 2 rows of Pale Oats, 1 of the green, 2 rows of Pale Oats, 1 of the blue, you know, that kind of thing. And I'll do it sort of in that kind of, and I think that actually might be quite nice, even if I'm not going to run out of yarn. I think it might be quite sweet to do that. Oh, I just love this, it's so pretty. So now that it's actually finished, at least this sizing is finished, even though I haven't done the envelope closure, I could actually take this now to Spotlight, our big box store, and, you know, take a look at some cushion inserts and see. I'll just put down below how much yarn, like what it weighs right now. I do know that I have 44 grams of the Pale Oats left out of 3 skeins. So that is quite a lot of knitting. And each of the contrast colors used about 12.5 grams of yarn. So I'll just put down below what it weighs and also the final dimensions. I haven't blocked it yet. So I think I will block it before I do the pick up stitches for the envelope closure, just to sort of, you know, get it to a settled size. Actually, I should probably do that before I go shopping for the insert as well. So yep, super happy with that, but it's just on pause until I finish Heimathafen. So my last 2 works in progress are both beanies. This one is the Essential Beanie by Andrea Gaughan, and I'm knitting that out of Madeline Tosh 80-10-10 DK in the colorway Kenobi, and I'm up to the decreases now. So the Essential Beanie is a paid for pattern by Andrea Gaughan. It's basically the same pattern as the free 2x2 by Anne Gagnon, but it has a lot more information. It has more sizes. It has sizing for different cast-ons for different yarn weights. So there's definitely more information in there. And if you don't either already know that or don't have other patterns or experience of having knit a lot of different sizes and different yarn weights and are not sure of your cast-on numbers, it's worth buying the pattern. If you feel comfortable with that, I would just use the 2x2 by Anne Gagnon. So once again, when I got to the decreases, I forgot that I wanted my first stitch to be a knit 1 instead of knit 2. So I did about 8 rows of decreases and was looking at it going, this doesn't look very neat. And then I remembered, oh, that's right. I completely forgot, like from 2 weeks ago. I completely forgot that to do the decreases, I need to have my first section needs to be a knit 1, not a knit 2. So I need my start of round to be knit 1, purl 2, knit 1, or knit 2, sorry, knit 1, purl 2, knit 2, etc. And then finishing on a knit 1, which is actually where I would normally be anyway, because I did a tubular cast on using Judy's Magic cast on, and I did that starting with a knit 1. So, but I must have just lost my beginning of round marker at some point and popped one back on just at the start of a knit 2 instead of in the middle of 2 knit 1 stitches. Anyway, that's just crazy. I can't believe I did that again, but actually I can. I make a mistake and then I make the same mistake a couple of weeks later. Usually it happens when I just start doing the next thing, the decreases, and I'm in the middle of something else. So I'm not really giving it my full attention. So once again, I need to actually follow my own advice to myself. When you change something in the pattern or you're about to move to a next stage, just stop what you're doing. Don't try to do it at the same time as something else and just move straight into it. Give it the time that it needs. I'm hoping I don't do that a third time. Anyway, very happy with that. At the moment it's 8. I've just started the decreases. I've done the first round. It's 8.5 inches long. The decreases, it's cast on 112 stitches. And the decreases should take 2.5 inches, which will be a finished result of 11 inches, which is what I like. And I'm pretty sure that that will be done for next week. My last work in progress is another beanie, and this is A Twisted Affair by Joji Locatelli, and I'm using the recommended yarn, which is Woolfolk Luft and Luft probably. Anyway, so last week I had done a 2x2 tubular cast on for this. Didn't like how it was looking, so I've changed it to a long tail cast on, and then knit worked one row flat and then joined in the round, so that will be the side that's showing, that nice smooth side. I like that much better. I think that looks much tidier. The yarn is sort of, it's interesting working with it. It's not bad to work with, but it's a little bit sort of spongy, but I'm liking how it's coming along. I've definitely made more progress than before. I'll be interested to see how it blocks. I think I've only done about 8 rows, so I haven't done the first cable row yet. In Joji's pattern, she recommends knitting to 17 rows, which is, and it's a free pattern, 17 rows, which is 6 centimeters before you start the cable repeat, which starts with a cable row. But I found with the hats that I've made before that I like of this, I like, instead of 6 centimeters, I like to knit it to about 8 centimeters, then start the cable repeat, so that then when you fold it up, you don't see the cable cross, or at least when I fold it up to the length of brim that I like, which is about 3 inches. 7.5 centimeters is 3 inches. So if I knit it to 8 centimeters, then when I fold it up, yeah, I think it is about 3, sort of between 2.5 and 3 inches is what I like for a brim, but I just don't want it to go just past where you actually see the cable row. It doesn't look very nice. So anyway, I've still got a few more rows to do there before I do my first cable row, and I will be interested to see how this looks using the recommended yarn. And then with the yarn that I have left, because I have 2 balls of this, I'll do a swatch in sort of like this is a 5mm needle, which is what's recommended, but for this yarn it's stated as a bulky yarn with like needle size of 5.5 mils to 8 mils. So yeah, I'll be interested to try swatching it on a larger needle and just seeing how I like the fabric, maybe for a sweater. I'm kind of almost hoping I don't like it, because it's really expensive. And it's a lot easier if you're like, yeah, that yarn's rubbish. I mean, I shouldn't say rubbish, but like it's maybe there's another yarn that I like just as much, if not more, that is at a better price point. So, but I thought I'll try it anyway. But yes, I'm kind of hoping I don't really like it that much. So that's it for my works in progress. As for my acquisitions, I did that order with Petite Knit, and I got the zipper and the straps for the Florence bag. I also added in an extra zipper for the zipper sweater light, which seems enormous. It says to order the 35 centimeter zipper, but that looks so big. I know you can shorten zippers, but I don't know how that works with metal zippers. With a nylon teeth, you could just cut it, but this just seems huge. Anyway, I ordered what was on the pattern, so we'll see how that goes. I don't actually have yarn decided for that sweater, but I do know I want it in like a dark color or black, so I ordered the black. And yes, I have the mohair for it, but I don't have the fingering weight yarn to go with it for the zipper sweater light. But I have the zipper now, so yes. Now, as for other acquisitions, I did receive some yarn from Gaughan. Well, actually not directly from Gaughan, but I'll have to remember where I ordered it from. SKD Yarns. I got some Gaughan yarn from SKD Yarns, and I also got some knitting for Olive Yarn. But I'm not going to show that today, because I'm actually going to do a plans 2025 plans video this weekend, and pretty much all of that yarn is involved in those plans, along with some other yarn as well. So I'm just going to hold that off until the weekend. And yes, so that's kind of it for the knitting content of today's video, and I'm just going to move into my personal stuff. Before I do, I'll just quickly mention I've got one more recording in January with working on a weekly schedule. I go back to work on the 29th, so I'll do another recording on Tuesday the 28th, and then from there on I'll move into every 2 weeks recording. So I'll move back to Wednesdays, but it will be every other week, and then hopefully on the odd weeks, the weeks where I'm not doing a regular video of just what I've been making, I'll do a tutorial or something else like a plans video or something else that I've noticed. But yeah, only every 2 weeks coming up from just because I'm going to be a little bit busy with work. So if you're leaving me now, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I will see you next week, and then after that moving to what we call in Australia a fortnightly schedule, or every 2 weeks. I don't know if that's bi-weekly, but anyway, we call it fortnight here, which not the game fortnight, but 2 weeks. So yeah. So a very quick personal stuff. I had a lovely couple of days with my friend Beck and we recorded together there last week. I got home on Thursday night about 9 o'clock at night and then repacked, and on Friday morning we drove down, my husband and my son Zach and I, we drove down to Melbourne to watch the Australian Open tennis. So it was driving all Friday, all Monday, and tennis all day Saturday and Sunday, which was amazing. It was so fun, but both, like, my back's a bit sore and stiff from that amount of time in the car and, you know, just sitting in one spot for the tennis. And my husband's knee is really bad again, so his left knee anyway. So there was a bit of a cost to going down. Probably in hindsight should have flown. I was actually thinking that driving would be easier because we could stop whenever we wanted. We didn't have to like be, you know, lining up at airports and all that kind of stuff. But still, it is kind of hard on the body, especially for him with his knees, just sitting in a car, and it's hard on my lower back. Anyway, getting older, because I don't think my son has had any issues whatsoever, but he's 17. The tennis was great. We on Saturday we just had a day pass, which is like $80 Australian. I think that's about 50 US, a bit less than 50 US, and that was great. It was just as good, if not better, than the Sunday where we actually had paid for seats actual, you know, ticketed seats in Margaret Court Arena. But yeah, we got to see some really great players. I won't go into all of the players that we saw, but it was a lot of fun, and my son we all really enjoyed it. They took really good care of us in terms of my husband being on crutches. They helped us so that we didn't have to wait in line with him standing for really long periods of time. Their disability services was fantastic. The only thing that was kind of funny, not funny, but surprising, when they were like, yes, okay, we'll take you to the disability section, and were able to help us. The person who was helping us, nearly every single time they were marching off, and we're like trying to keep up with them, and my husband's like on his crutches trying to keep up. So they were really, really helpful, but I think perhaps forgetting that we are a little bit slower than we can walk a bit slower than they can walk. But in terms of looking after us, they were amazing. So that was really encouraging. If you do have any kind of mobility issues and you were thinking about going to the Australian Open, the tennis, and you're like, I'm not sure how I would manage that, they will look after you there. They offered us a wheelchair. He was happy with his crutches, but it was really nice to know that was an option as well if he needed it. So yeah, that was great fun. We got back Monday night, and yeah, now it's just like back to reality. I've got 1 week left to go, and I'll be back at work. So I'm going to finish up now because I'm actually about to go have lunch with my mum and my auntie Rosalie, who's down from her place. And my daughter Alex is coming, and my son Zach. I'm not sure that my husband's up for going because I think he really does need to rest his knee after all of the driving and the sit. You know, I think he needs to just be with his knee horizontal. But looking forward to just a really nice lunch with family, and it's nice to be able to still be in school holidays and doing that. All right, I gotta go. Thanks for being here, and yeah, I'll see you next week.